Commander Emily Wilson stood at the bridge of the U.S. Schrödinger, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the holographic displays floating before her. The ship's quantum core hummed with a sound that wasn't quite a sound, more like a feeling in her bones that shifted between different notes without ever settling on one. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady despite the tension in her shoulders. "Quantum state drive is stable, Commander," Lieutenant Steve Baker responded from his station. "All probability fields are holding at optimal levels." He paused, checking another reading. "We're successfully existing in, well, everywhere and nowhere at once, Mom." Emily allowed herself a small smile. Even after 6 months of commanding humanity's first quantum state battleship, the reality of what they'd achieved still amazed her. The U.S. Schrödinger was a marvel of human engineering, a warship that could exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. In simple terms, it was like being in several places at once, while also being nowhere at all. "Dr. Hayes, how are the probability matrices looking?" she asked, turning to the quantum physics specialist. Robert Hayes looked up from his complex array of instruments, his gray eyes bright with excitement. "Fascinating readings, Commander. We're maintaining stable quantum superposition across all major systems. The ship is currently occupying." He squinted at the numbers, approximately 7,000 possible states simultaneously. The bridge crew had learned to trust these impossible numbers. What had once seemed like science fiction was now their daily reality. The ship around them was both here and there, present and absent, a physical manifestation of Schrödinger's famous thought experiment scaled up to battleship size. "Beginning our patrol route along the Centauri border," announced Lieutenant Amy Parker from the helm. Her fingers danced across the quantum-sensitive controls, adjusting their position in probability space rather than normal space. Everything was routine until the sensor array erupted in a cascade of alerts. "Commander," called out Senior Officer Pete Duncan from the sensor station, "I'm picking up unusual energy signatures at coordinates 227 Mark 43. His fingers flew across the console. They're like nothing we've seen before. The quantum probability patterns are completely foreign." Emily moved to his station, studying the readouts. The energy signatures pulsed with an alien regularity that sent chills down her spine. "Analysis. They appear to be some kind of observation posts," Pete responded, his voice dropping lower. "But here's the weird part. They're trying to track us and failing completely. Their sensors keep losing lock on our position because they can't handle our quantum state shifts." Dr. Hayes rushed over, his eyes widening as he saw the data. "Commander, these readings, they're incredible. Whatever's out there, they're using incredibly advanced technology. But," he paused, double-checking his findings, "they're only working in classical space. They don't understand how to track quantum state objects." Emily felt her pulse quicken. This was exactly the kind of situation they'd been training for. "How long have these posts been here?" "Based on the energy decay patterns," Pete answered. "At least 3 months. They've been watching us, studying our space. And they never expected us to notice them," Emily concluded, "because they assumed we weren't advanced enough." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't alone in this sector of space, and their observers had just been caught off guard by technology they hadn't believed possible. "What are your orders, Commander?" Amy asked from the helm, her hands hovering over the controls. Emily straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. This was the moment that would make history, humanity's first real contact with an advanced alien civilization, and they'd caught them by surprise. "Record all sensor data," she ordered. "Lieutenant Parker, maintain our quantum state, but adjust our patrol pattern to get closer to those observation posts. Dr. Hayes, I want a full analysis of their technology level. And someone wake up Captain Foster at Earth Defense Fleet Command. He needs to know we're not alone out here anymore." As her crew rushed to comply with her orders, Emily Wilson stared at the sensor readings of the alien observation posts. The U.S. Schrödinger had just proven its worth in the most unexpected way possible, by showing that humanity's understanding of quantum mechanics had surpassed that of at least one alien civilization. The real question now was, how would they react when they realized their supposedly primitive neighbors had mastered something they hadn't even thought possible? "And get me a secure quantum channel to Earth," she added. "I have a feeling we're about to have a very interesting first contact situation on our hands." Dr. Robert Hayes hadn't slept in 24 hours. The quantum physicist stared at his screens as new data poured in about the alien observation posts. Something about their technology bothered him. It was advanced, yes, but it followed oddly rigid patterns. "Commander Wilson," he called out, "I think I know why they can't track us." Emily walked over to his station, where complex wave patterns danced across the screens. The bridge of the U.S. Schrödinger hummed with nervous energy as the crew waited for answers. "They're called the meridians," Robert explained, pointing to the analysis. "At least, that's what we got from decoding their communications. They're advanced, maybe 100 years ahead of us in most areas. But they think about quantum mechanics all wrong." Before Emily could respond, Lieutenant Steve Baker's voice cut through the air. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from a ship that just appeared at the edge of our sensor range." "On screen," Emily ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing a tall, silvery figure with geometric patterns etched into its metallic skin. Its voice came through the translator in sharp, precise tones. "Human vessel, this is Observer Commander Keth of the Meridian Exploration Fleet. Your presence has been noted in violation of quarantine protocols. Primitive species are not permitted to operate quantum technology. Submit your research data immediately." Emily straightened her uniform. "This is Commander Wilson of the U.S. Schrödinger. We were unaware of any quarantine. We are willing to discuss." "There is nothing to discuss," the Meridian cut her off. "Your species has broken containment. Our sensors indicate impossible readings from your vessel. Explain how you acquired quantum state technology." Robert stepped forward. "Commander, they're scanning us with classical sensors. They literally can't understand what they're seeing. Their whole approach to quantum mechanics is based on rigid mathematics. They don't grasp the uncertainty principle the way we do." The Meridian's voice grew harder. "Your physicist speaks nonsense. Quantum mechanics follows strict mathematical rules. Your vessel violates 17 of them. This is impossible. You will submit your research data and deactivate your quantum systems immediately." Emily felt her jaw tighten. "I'm afraid we can't do that. Our quantum systems are integrated into the ship's core functions." "Then you will surrender your vessel for study," the alien commanded. "Your primitive understanding of quantum mechanics poses a danger to space-time itself." Steve's console lit up with warnings. "Commander, 5 more Meridian ships just appeared. They're charging weapons." Emily's training kicked in. "Red alert. Lieutenant Parker, initiate quantum state shift pattern Delta." "Dr. Hayes, can they track us?" "Negative," Robert replied, fingers flying across his console. "Their targeting systems are based on classical physics. They literally can't predict where we'll be because they don't believe it's possible for us to be in multiple states." The Meridian commander's voice turned threatening. "Your vessel's behavior violates the fundamental laws of physics. This is your final warning. Submit or be destroyed." "Sir," Steve called out. "They're trying to lock weapons, but their targeting systems keep failing. They can't handle our quantum signature." The Meridian ships opened fire, but their energy beams passed through empty space. The U.S. Schrödinger existed in too many possible locations at once for their conventional weapons to hit. "This is impossible," the Meridian commander raged. "You cannot exist in quantum superposition at this scale. It defies all known laws." Emily allowed herself a small smile. "Perhaps your laws need updating, Commander. We're willing to share our understanding of quantum mechanics peacefully." "Unacceptable." The alien's metallic features twisted in what might have been rage. The High Command must be notified. Your species will be contained. This violation of physics cannot be permitted to spread." The transmission cut off abruptly. The Meridian ships vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving the crew of the U.S. Schrödinger in stunned silence. "Well," Robert said quietly, "I guess they didn't like finding out they were wrong about quantum mechanics." Emily nodded grimly. "Get me Earth Defense Command. The Meridians just proved they're hostile, and I have a feeling they'll be back with a bigger fleet." She turned to face her crew. "They think we're primitive because we don't follow their rules. Let's get ready to show them why thinking outside the box is humanity's greatest strength." As the quantum battleship shifted through its probability states, heading back to Earth, Emily knew one thing for certain. The real battle hadn't even begun yet. Captain David Foster stood in Earth Defense Fleet Command's main control room, watching as red dots appeared on the giant holographic display. Each dot represented a Meridian warship, and there were hundreds of them now. "How many?" he asked, his voice tight. 347 ships, sir," replied Officer Lisa Green. "They just appeared at the edge of our solar system. They're not trying to hide." David ran a hand through his graying hair. The U.S. Schrödinger's warning had come just 2 weeks ago, but the Meridians had moved faster than anyone expected. He pressed a button on his command console. "Get me Commander Wilson." The quantum encrypted channel opened, showing Emily Wilson on the bridge of the U.S. Schrödinger. Her ship was Earth's best defense, and maybe its only real hope against such overwhelming numbers. "Captain Foster," she greeted him. "I assume you're seeing what we're seeing." 300+ ships, he confirmed. "How many can your quantum drive handle at once?" Before Emily could answer, all communication screens in both command centers lit up with an incoming transmission. The metallic face of a Meridian appeared, larger and more decorated than the one they'd met before. "I am High Commander Xerath of the Meridian Battle Fleet," the alien announced. "Your species has violated the natural laws of physics. This cannot be permitted to continue." David stepped forward. "This is Captain David Foster of Earth Defense Fleet Command. We have broken no laws of physics. We've simply understood them differently than you have." "Impossible," Xerath declared. "Our civilization has studied quantum mechanics for 10,000 years. Your primitive species has barely achieved spaceflight. You cannot possess technology we do not understand." Lisa's console beeped urgently. "Sir, they're launching smaller ships. Hundreds of them." The holographic display filled with even more red dots as fighter craft poured out of the Meridian vessels. The alien fleet was positioning itself in a perfect geometric pattern, like a giant net around Earth's orbital defense zone. "Your options are simple," Xerath continued. "Surrender all quantum technology and submit to quarantine, or we will destroy your civilization's ability to reach space. You have 1 Earth hour to decide." The transmission cut off. David turned to his staff. "Get me every ship we have, everything that can fly, and get the planetary defense shields to full power." He looked back at Emily's communication window. "Commander Wilson, how many of those ships can you handle?" Emily consulted with Dr. Hayes off-screen for a moment. "The Schrödinger can exist in about 10,000 quantum states at once. In theory, we could engage dozens of their ships simultaneously. They still can't track us effectively." "Sir," Lisa called out, "the Meridian fleet is deploying some kind of energy web between their ships. It's like they're trying to create a giant sensor net." Dr. Hayes's voice came through the communication channel. "They're trying to limit our quantum states. They think if they can create a fixed energy pattern around us, they can force us to exist in just one place." David watched as the Meridian fleet continued its perfect mathematical deployment. Every ship knew its exact position. Every movement was calculated to mathematical precision. It was impressive, and it gave him an idea. "They're too perfect," he said slowly. "Commander Wilson, what happens if you force a quantum paradox into their sensor network?" Emily's eyes widened as she understood. Their whole battle plan depends on perfect mathematical precision. If we can introduce enough quantum uncertainty into their formations, they'll either have to adapt to quantum uncertainty, which they clearly can't, David continued, or their entire battle network could crash. It's risky, Dr. Hayes added. We'd have to get close enough to their command ships to affect their entire network. One hit while we're that close. Better than watching them destroy Earth, Emily said firmly. Captain Foster, request permission to engage the Meridian fleet. David looked at the countdown timer showing the remaining time to surrender. 47 minutes. He thought about how the Meridians had hidden around Earth's space, studying them like lab rats. How they dismissed humanity as primitive simply because they thought differently. Permission granted, Commander Wilson. Show them why humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to think in ways they never imagined. As the U.S. Schrödinger powered up its quantum drive, David watched the Meridian fleet's perfect formation and smiled. Sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't the biggest fleet or the most advanced technology. Sometimes it was simply the ability to embrace uncertainty and chaos instead of fearing it. The battle for Earth was about to begin. Lead engineer Susan Cooper raced through the corridors of the U.S. Schrödinger, tablet in hand. The ship hummed around her, its quantum core shifting through thousands of states each second. She'd just made a discovery that could change everything about their fight with the Meridians. Commander Wilson, she called out as she burst onto the bridge. You need to see this. Emily turned from her tactical display, where the massive Meridian fleet hung in space like a glittering web of death. What is it, Cooper? Susan held up her tablet, showing complex quantum readings. I've been studying their ship designs. The Meridians don't just misunderstand quantum mechanics. They're afraid of it. Dr. Hayes moved closer, his eyes widening as he looked at the data. Of course. Look at their ship designs. Every system has quantum dampeners. They're terrified of quantum uncertainty. Explain it simply, Emily ordered, watching as the enemy fleet continued its methodical approach. Susan pointed to different parts of her analysis. The Meridians advanced their technology by fighting against quantum mechanics, not working with it. They built their entire civilization on making things certain and predictable. They don't just think quantum uncertainty is wrong. They think it's dangerous. Commander, Lieutenant Steve Baker called from his station. The Meridian energy web is almost complete. 10 minutes until they can start their attack. Emily looked at the tactical display. The Meridian ships had arranged themselves in a perfect geometric pattern around Earth, creating a web of energy that they thought would trap the Schrödinger in normal space. Their entire plan depends on certainty, Susan continued excitedly. But we built the Schrödinger to embrace uncertainty. That's why they can't understand us. We're doing everything they spent thousands of years trying to prevent. Dr. Hayes snapped his fingers. That's why their sensors can't track us. They designed them to filter out quantum uncertainty. When they look at us, their instruments literally delete half of what we're doing because they think it's impossible. Emily felt a plan forming. So if we pushed our quantum state drive to maximum, we wouldn't just confuse them, Susan finished. We'd terrify them. Their entire worldview is built on the idea that quantum uncertainty can be controlled and eliminated. We're proving them wrong just by existing. Sir, Steve called out again. 5 minutes until their web is complete. Emily smiled. Finally, she understood their enemy's true weakness. Susan, how many quantum states can you get this ship into at once? If we redirect power from weapons. Susan calculated quickly. Maybe 50,000. But it's never been tested at that level. The Meridians tested their ideas for 10,000 years, Emily said. We test our limits every day. That's what they don't understand about humans. She turned to her crew. Battle stations. Susan, push the quantum drive as far as it'll go. Dr. Hayes, I want you to flood their sensor networks with so much quantum uncertainty they won't know up from down. The bridge crew rushed to their positions. The U.S. Schrödinger's quantum core began to pulse faster, its harmonics changing as Susan pushed it beyond its designed limits. Meridian Web is at 95% completion, Steve reported. Their weapons are powering up. Let them come, Emily said calmly. They built their fleet to impose order on the universe. We built the Schrödinger to prove the universe doesn't work that way. The ship's quantum state began to multiply exponentially. Where before they existed in thousands of possible states, now they flickered through tens of thousands. On the tactical display, the Meridian sensors tried desperately to track them, their perfect formation beginning to waver as their systems encountered readings they were programmed to reject. They're targeting us, Steve shouted. Multiple weapons locks. No, they lost them. They keep losing them. Susan's hands flew across her engineering console, quantum drive holding steady at 40,000 states and climbing. They can't track what they refuse to believe is possible. Emily watched as confusion spread through the Meridian fleet. Their perfect formation, based on absolute mathematical certainty, began to break down as the U.S. Schrödinger defied everything they thought they knew about physics. Send them a message, Emily ordered. Tell them, the universe isn't just stranger than you imagine, it's stranger than you can imagine. As the message went out, the Schrödinger continued to multiply its quantum states, becoming more and more uncertain and more powerful. The battle was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weakness in the Meridian's eyes, their embrace of uncertainty, was about to become their greatest strength. Lieutenant John Martinez watched his weapons console light up as the Meridian fleet launched their first attack. Thousands of energy beams cut through space, creating a web of destruction that would have torn any normal ship to pieces. But the U.S. Schrödinger wasn't a normal ship. Quantum state shift complete. Susan Cooper called from engineering. We're existing in 48,000 states simultaneously. Commander Wilson's voice cut through the tension. John, show them what a quantum weapons system can do. John grinned as he activated the ship's unique weapons. The quantum torpedoes didn't just travel through space. They existed in multiple places at once, making them impossible to dodge or block. Firing solution ready, he announced. But Commander, I can hit 12 of their ships at once from our quantum states. Do it, Emily ordered. John pressed the launch controls. The quantum torpedoes shot out, splitting into multiple probability states. On the main screen, 12 Meridian ships suddenly erupted in explosions. Their perfect formation wavered as ships tried to dodge weapons that existed everywhere and nowhere at once. Impossible. The voice of War Commander Xerath boomed through their communications. Your weapons violate every law of ballistics. High above Earth, the battle turned into chaos. The Meridian fleet's perfect geometric patterns fell apart as they tried to fight an enemy they couldn't properly track or target. They're launching fighters, Steve Baker announced from his sensor station. Hundreds of them. The space around the Schrödinger filled with smaller Meridian ships, all trying to box them in. But their tactics were too perfect, too planned. They couldn't adapt to a ship that refused to stay in one place or time. John, target their fighter squadrons, Emily commanded. Let's show them why rigid formation flying doesn't work against quantum weapons. John's fingers danced across his console. The Schrödinger's weapons fired again, existing in multiple states at once. Meridian fighters exploded across space as they couldn't dodge weapons that hit them in every possible position they might take. Their battle computer is failing, Dr. Hayes called out excitedly. They designed it to reject impossible sensor readings, and we're giving them nothing but impossible readings. The massive Meridian fleet started to show signs of confusion. Their perfect formations broke down. Ships collided as they tried to follow battle computers that couldn't process what was happening. Sir, Steve's voice was urgent. They're charging their main weapon, some kind of massive energy cannon. On the main screen, the Meridian flagship's front section split open, revealing a massive weapon that glowed with power. Energy readings went off the charts as they prepared to fire. All power to quantum drive, Emily ordered. Susan, Push it to 50,000 states. John, prepare to fire everything we have. The Schrodinger's quantum core screamed as Susan pushed it beyond its limits. The ship existed in more places at once than ever before, spreading across probability like a wave of uncertainty. Xereth's voice came through again, showing the first signs of fear. You cannot exist. Our weapons will find your true position. The Meridian superweapon fired, sending a beam of pure energy that would have destroyed a planet. But it passed through empty space, hitting nothing but probability. Quantum torpedoes ready, John reported calmly, targeting their flagship from 30 different quantum states. Fire. The torpedoes launched, appearing in multiple places at once. The Meridian flagship's defenses couldn't cope with weapons that existed everywhere simultaneously. Explosions ripped through their massive ship as quantum torpedoes struck from impossible angles. Their fleet is falling apart, Steve reported. Ships are breaking formation everywhere. On the main screen, the once perfect Meridian battle fleet had descended into chaos. Ships fired at sensor ghosts, tried to dodge weapons that hit them anyway, and crashed into each other as their battle computers failed to process the quantum uncertainty around them. Send them a message, Emily ordered. Tell them this is their chance to retreat. Tell them humanity isn't their enemy. Rigid thinking is. As John watched the Meridian fleet's perfect formation crumble, he understood something important. The aliens had spent 10,000 years trying to eliminate uncertainty from the universe. Humanity had spent its time learning to surf chaos like a wave. The battle wasn't over, but its outcome was becoming certain, ironically, through the power of uncertainty itself. Dr. Rachel Brooks stared at her tactical analysis screen aboard the U.S. Schrodinger, watching as the Meridian fleet struggled to regroup. As the ship's tactical analyst, she was starting to see a pattern in their enemy's behavior that no one else had noticed yet. Commander Wilson, she called out, I think I understand why they're fighting so badly. It's not just their technology, it's their whole civilization. Emily moved to Rachel's station, watching as another group of Meridian ships fired uselessly at one of the Schrodinger's quantum echoes. Explain. Look at their fleet movements, Rachel pointed to her screen. Every time we do something impossible, they try the same failed tactics again, just with more power. They can't adapt because their whole society is built on the idea that everything must follow rules. The ship shuddered as it shifted through thousands of quantum states, avoiding another barrage of Meridian weapons. Their entire civilization is like their battle computers, Rachel continued. When faced with something that doesn't fit their rules, they don't adapt. They just try to force it to fit harder. Susan Cooper's voice came over the intercom from engineering. She's right. Their ships keep trying to lock onto our real position because they truly believe everything must have one true state. They can't accept that we might actually be in multiple places. On the main screen, the Meridian fleet had arranged itself into a new attack formation. It was mathematically perfect and completely useless against a quantum state ship. Message from the enemy flagship. Steve Baker announced. War Commander Xereth wants to speak. The metallic face of the Meridian commander appeared on screen. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by what looked like fear. What are you? He demanded. Our sensors say you exist in 50,000 places at once. This breaks every law of physics we know. No, Emily replied calmly. It just breaks your understanding of those laws. The universe doesn't care about our rules, Commander. It only cares about what's possible. Impossible. Order must exist. Without perfect rules, civilization cannot function. Xereth's voice had risen to almost a screech. Rachel suddenly sat up straighter. Commander Wilson, that's it. Their whole society would collapse if they admitted quantum uncertainty was real. They're not fighting us to destroy us. They're fighting to preserve their worldview. Emily looked at the tactical display, where the Meridian fleet was trying yet another mathematically perfect formation. They're trapped by their own certainty, she said softly. Then, louder. Dr. Hayes, Can we push the quantum drive even further? Show them something so impossible they can't deny it. We can try, Hayes replied. Susan, if we route emergency power through the backup systems. Already on it. Susan called back. Quantum states increasing to 70,000, 80,000. The Schrödinger began to exist in more places than ever before. On the main screen, they could see the Meridian Fleet's sensors trying desperately to track them. Their battle network is overloading, Steve reported. They're getting sensor readings from everywhere at once. Rachel watched her tactical display as the impossible happened. The Meridian Fleet, which had been so perfectly coordinated, began to break apart. Ships stopped following orders as their computers received contradictory data from every direction. Look, she pointed excitedly. Some of their ships are powering down their quantum dampeners. They're starting to realize their whole approach is wrong. Xereth's face appeared again on the screen, but this time he looked broken. How you function without certainty. How do you navigate a universe that can exist in multiple states? Emily stood tall on her bridge, surrounded by her crew who had learned to embrace the quantum uncertainty that the Meridians feared so much. We accept that the universe is stranger and more wonderful than we can imagine, she answered. And instead of trying to force it to follow our rules, we adapt our rules to follow it. The Meridian Fleet hung motionless in space, their perfect formations shattered, their worldview crumbling around them. And Rachel Brooks, watching from her tactical station, realized they had won not through superior firepower or technology, but by showing their enemy a bigger, more wonderful universe than they had ever imagined possible. The paradigm shift had begun. Commander Emily Wilson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Schrödinger as the remains of the Meridian Fleet hung in space before them. After their battle computers had crashed trying to process quantum uncertainty, most of their ships had simply shut down, floating helplessly in the void. Status report, she called out. 80% of the Meridian Fleet is powered down, Steve Baker reported from his sensor station. The rest are just sitting there. They're not even trying to fight anymore. Dr. Robert Hayes looked up from his quantum physics station. Their entire worldview just collapsed, Commander. Imagine spending 10,000 years believing the universe worked one way, only to find out you were wrong. A message flashed on the main screen. War Commander Xereth was requesting to speak again, but this time on a different channel, a private one. Emily nodded to Steve. Put him through. The Meridian commander appeared, but he looked different. The rigid, geometric patterns on his metallic skin had somehow softened. When he spoke, his voice had lost its harsh edge. Commander Wilson, he said quietly, our fleet is yours to destroy. We cannot fight what we cannot understand. Emily shook her head. We don't want to destroy you, Commander. We want to teach you. Teach us. Xereth seemed confused. But we are the advanced civilization. We have studied the universe for millennia. And yet, Emily smiled, a supposedly primitive species showed you something new about it. Imagine what else you might learn if you stopped trying to force the universe to follow your rules. Susan Cooper's voice came over the intercom from engineering. Commander, I've been analyzing their quantum dampeners. With a few modifications, they could actually enhance quantum effects instead of suppressing them. Their own technology could help them understand what we've been trying to show them. Xereth listened to this, his metallic features showing something that might have been hope. You would share your understanding with us, after we tried to destroy you. That's what humans do, Emily replied. We learn, we adapt, and we share what we learn. We've already proven we can defeat you in battle. Now let us prove we can help you in peace. Dr. Rachel Brooks spoke up from her tactical station. Sir, look at their ships, the ones that drop their quantum dampeners. They're starting to register quantum readings similar to ours. On the main screen, they could see some Meridian ships beginning to flicker slightly, their rigid existence starting to blur at the edges as they embraced a little uncertainty. It's beautiful, Xereth whispered, watching his own ships. All these years, We thought quantum uncertainty was a flaw in the universe that needed to be corrected. But you showed us it was a gift waiting to be embraced." Emily turned to her crew. "Stand down from battle stations. Dr. Hayes, prepare a basic primer on how we developed our quantum state technology. Susan, get ready to help them modify their first ship. Let's show them how much more they can see when they stop trying to force everything to be certain." The bridge crew broke into smiles as they realized the fight was truly over. They had won not by destroying their enemy, but by opening their eyes to new possibilities. "Commander Wilson," Kirith said formally, "on behalf of the Meridian High Command, I request that humanity teach us how to surf chaos as you do. Our certainty has become our prison. Help us break free." Emily looked at her crew, humans who had reached for the stars not with rigid certainty, but with flexible minds and adaptable spirits. They had turned humanity's greatest weakness in the Meridian's eyes, their embrace of uncertainty, into their greatest strength. "Message Earth Defense Command," she ordered. "Tell them the war is over, and tell them to prepare for guests. We had a lot to teach our new friends about the art of uncertainty." As the quantum state drive hummed around them, Emily watched the Meridian ships power back up one by one, their crews starting to explore the quantum nature of reality they had feared for so long. They had come to Earth expecting to find primitives who needed to be contained. Instead, they had found teachers who would help them see the universe in all its wonderful, uncertain glory. The U.S. Schrödinger shifted through its quantum states one more time, but now not as a weapon of war. Instead, as a beacon of discovery for a civilization learning to embrace the beautiful uncertainty of existence.